So today, we're diving into one of the greatest speeches in all of history. Seriously, it's an absolute masterclass in how you can take a catastrophic failure and somehow turn it into a stunning victory. Not on the battlefield, but in the court of public opinion.
I mean, just think about that for a second. Put yourself in this situation. Imagine you're a politician, and your big, signature policy has just led your country into a devastating war that you lost badly. Your entire career should be in ruins. How on earth do you defend that?
Well, believe it or not, that is exactly the scenario we're looking at in ancient Athens, way back in 330 BC. The city is absolutely reeling from a military disaster, and Demosthenes, the guy who was the architect of the whole thing, is about to stand trial and fight for his political life. Now, the stage for this epic showdown is a courtroom. And the case itself? Well, on the surface, it's about something pretty simple, a proposal to award a golden crown. Okay, so it all kicks off 6 years earlier, in 336 BC. A politician by the name of Crithophan gets up and says, hey, we should honor Demosthenes with a golden crown for everything he's done for Athens. Now, this was a pretty standard political honor back then, but in this case, that simple proposal was an absolute political bombshell. Because a rival immediately challenged the proposal in court. And everybody knew that the guy officially on trial, Ctesiphon, was just a pawn. The real target here was Demosthenes and his entire political legacy, his relentless, years-long resistance to the rising power of Macedon. And that brings us to the two men at the heart of this thing. Because this wasn't just some dry legal dispute. No, this was a battle for the very soul of Athens, and it was being fought between its two greatest public speakers.
So on one side, you have Demosthenes, the fiery patriot. He sees King Philip of Macedon as this looming tyrant and believes Athens has this sacred duty to fight for Greek liberty no matter what it costs. And then on the other side, you have Aeschines, the pragmatist. He's the guy arguing that war with Macedon is basically suicide and that the city's only sane option is peace and diplomacy. I mean, these are two completely opposite visions for the future of Athens.
And look, this rivalry wasn't just about politics. Oh no, it was deeply personal. Demosthenes, he came from a wealthy family. Aeschines, on the other hand, grew up poor, had to work as a clerk and even a minor actor. So you can bet Demosthenes loved to paint himself as this great patriot who personally paid for warships, while at the same time accusing Aeschines of basically being a paid shill for Macedon. You can just feel the bad blood between these two simmering under everything. Now, to really understand what's at stake in this trial, we have to talk about the disaster that led to it. We have to talk about the Battle of Chaeronea, the event that cast this long, dark shadow over everything. You see, for years, as Philip of Macedon just kept expanding his kingdom, Demosthenes was the loudest voice in Athens, screaming for resistance. He gave speech after fiery speech, we know them as the Philippics, warning everyone that their freedom was on the line. And eventually, he got his way. He convinced his fellow citizens, and an alliance of Greek cities went to meet Philip's army in 338 BC.
And the result was a complete and utter catastrophe. The Battle of Chaeronea wasn't just a loss. It was the end of an era. It cemented Macedonian dominance over all of Greece. The entire anti-Macedonian policy that Demosthenes had spent over a decade pushing for had ended in total, undeniable, crushing failure.
Just think about the human cost for Athens alone. At least 1,000 of their citizens were killed in that one battle. For a single city-state, that is a devastating blow. And the finality of it all was just absolute. The legendary secret band of Thebes, an elite unit of 300 soldiers thought to be basically invincible, was completely wiped out. The remains of 254 of its members were later found buried together in a single mass grave. So with the smoke from this disaster basically still hanging in the air, Aeschines finally saw his chance. 8 years after the battle, this was the moment he had been waiting for. He brings his case against the proposal to crown Demosthenes to court. Now, on paper, Aeschines' case was built on 3 legal technicalities. He argued the proposal was full of false praise, that it was illegal to crown an official who was still in office, and that the ceremony location was against the law. But let's be real, these were just the legal hooks for his real argument. Aeschines' actual point was simple, and it was powerful. He basically said, look, this guy Demosthenes is a great talker, but his actions are disgraceful. He seduced you all with these beautiful patriotic speeches that led directly to death and defeat. How could Athens possibly reward the man responsible for its greatest humiliation? So the case against him seems pretty much airtight, right? The facts are undeniable.
So how did Demosthenes respond? Well, he responded by delivering On the Crown, a speech that would be studied for literally thousands of years as an absolute masterpiece of persuasion.
His strategy was just genius. First, he totally deflects responsibility. He reminds the jury, hey, I didn't make this decision by myself. You, the people of Athens, you voted for this. This was our policy. Second, he completely reframes the goal. He argues the point was never to guarantee a win, but to do the honorable thing, to fight for freedom, just like your heroic ancestors did. And finally, and this is key, he blames the loss not on his plan, but on pure random chance.
He pulls out this powerful idea from Greek tragedy called touche, which basically means fortune or chance. He tells the jury that some things are just out of our hands. The gods or fate or whatever you want to call it, it was against them. The policy was right, he claimed, but fortune was just cruel. And by doing that, he basically casts himself as this noble, tragic hero.
And this, right here, was his masterstroke. He made the jury see that this wasn't just a trial about his results. It was a trial about their own identity. He was asking them, are you the kind of people who only care about winning, or are you the kind of people who value honor and freedom and courage, even when you lose? He made it so that to convict him would be to condemn their own highest ideals.
And then he went on the attack. He turned the tables completely. He points right at Aeschines and says, your policies supported our enemy, mine supported our country. He didn't just defend himself, he painted his rival as a traitor who sided with the enemy, while he, Demosthenes, stood proudly with Athens.
So, after this incredible rhetorical performance, how did the jury of 501 Athenian citizens vote? Were they going to condemn the man whose policies ended in total disaster, or celebrate the principles he claimed to represent?
It wasn't even close. It was an absolute, overwhelming landslide victory for Demosthenes. Aeschines, the prosecutor, he failed to get even 1/5 of the jury's votes, which in the Athenian legal system was a humiliating public defeat.
And the consequences for him were severe. Because he failed to hit that 20% mark, Aeschines was slapped with a massive fine and forced to leave Athens in total disgrace. He had to spend the rest of his life in exile, his entire political career completely destroyed by a single speech.
So Demosthenes won his crown, and his speech goes down in history as maybe the greatest defense ever given. And it just leaves us with this incredible question. Can the power of words, of pure rhetoric, really make a lost cause honorable? The jury in 330 BC certainly thought so. What about you?